So I made this comment a little bit in first service, but I highly recommend that all of you, if you get a chance to be on this side, to do it, because the piano music sounds even better. So we're very, very lucky. So good morning.
Good morning.
My name is James Finn. You might know me from such things as, are you calling Chloe's dad? Didn't your wife used to work here? And, oh, that guy. But today, I'm here to speak to you about the Texas Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry. I'm a member of the steering committee that launched the Texas UU Justice Ministry, or TXUJM. That's the way we roll. Thank you all so much for being here today and letting me speak. A little bit of history. Around 3 years ago, a call went out to all the UU churches in the state to send people to a meeting in Austin. It was January of 2012. I think I was asked because I had a little bit of lobby experience in my regular job. I work in the film business, and I've lobbied on behalf of that business in Texas, Louisiana, and New Mexico. At that time, we decided that the time was right for the UUs in Texas to come together and have a collective voice. So we forged ahead. We created our structure. In subsequent meetings, we articulated our mission and vision statements that I'll read to you now. The Texas Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry is a statewide justice ministry that raises the voice of Unitarian Universalist values in the public arena and seeks to have those values enacted into legislation and promulgated in public policy. Guided by Unitarian Universalist principles, TXUJM will educate and organize member congregations and partner with sympathetic organizations in order to advocate for public policies that uphold the worth and dignity of every person, further justice, equity, compassion, and human relations, ensure the use of the democratic process, protect religious freedom, and promote the respect for the independent web of all existence. Our faith calls us to change policies and structures that inhibit human development and harm the environment in our communities. We're called to educate and organize for justice. So our motto is, bending Texas toward justice. We had meetings with members of our steering committee made up of 8 UUs around the state that were at that initial meeting. This is basically our board of directors. Reverend Chuck Freeman was one of those members and was appointed to be our executive director. We came up with bylaws, structured how we involve member congregations, applied for and finally got 501c3 and 501c4 status. Set up the website, the Facebook page, applied for grants. Not the most sexy and fun stuff, but nevertheless, the meat of it, what it takes. And we knew early on that even if we got all of the Texas UUs speaking up for issues reflecting our values, it wouldn't be enough. So we started by building alliances and consolidating our efforts. During the last session, we knew women's reproductive rights were going to be threatened. Fancy that. So we partnered with NARAL, the National Abortion Rights Action, as well as the Texas Women's Healthcare Coalition. We were very active during this last session. For those that don't know, our legislature meets every 2 years. Our session now is starting this week. Last session, the Texas UU Justice Ministry worked with the Texas Industrial Areas Foundation Network, and together we were able to pass an important $5 million bill with broad bipartisan support. That was designed to fund local long-term job training programs that were founded by 6 IAF community organizations across the state. We're to get it funded with new oversight through the community college system. There were other grants and programs we were helpful in saving. One of our steering committee members, Mike Phillips from San Antonio, actually helped craft House Bill 437 for ACE, the Adult Career Education Fund, which was authored by Representative John Davis from Houston. Mike spent many visits to the Capitol and gave testimony critical to get it through the committee process and passed. We had youth come to visit with the representatives about the bill. And that bill in particular is to help train people with new skills to re-enter the workforce. And it's not just about the training, it's also about child care and other things that go along with it, so people can actually get the training. Our executive director, Chuck Freeman, and Reverend Ellen Cooper of Northwoods UU helped author a letter to the Texas Senate to oppose the highly restrictive abortion legislation. It was signed by over 70 clergy members from across the state, and Reverend Freeman and Cooper are also now founders of the Texas Faith Voices for Choice. During the Wendy Davis filibuster, we had many representatives there. Our executive director, Chuck, was there for almost all of it. What we learned from that experience is that many in the state are now looking to us as the liberal religious voice in Texas politics. And during the last session, we concentrated on women's health care, job training, education, as well as immigration reform. The TXUJM partnered with the Texas Women's Healthcare Coalition, and we worked to successfully advocate for the restoration of around $200 million for women's health care. We've had a few training sessions across the state, communicating with elected officials, as well as Chuck, our executive director, making many visits to speak to UU churches about the work that we're doing and what we want to see for the future. So, basically, what all that means is, for an organization that just got started less than a year before our last session, we did some good. And Westside helps this cause by being a member of the TXUJM. You have 2 representatives from Westside on our advisory board. The advisory board helps set the agenda for upcoming legislative sessions. As of now, Westside's 2 reps are Peter Bagley and Bob Van. Our executive director communicates with the advisory board monthly, and it's through these calls that the agendas are set for each legislative session. Right now, we have about 25 churches of the 48 in the state that are with us, and it's growing all the time. It was through this monthly conference call process that the issues we will advocate for in the session coming up were chosen. Here are the top 3 issues that we'll be focusing on in this next session. One, of course, is women's reproductive justice. Number 2 is economic justice or income inequality issues. And 3 is implementation of the Affordable Health Care Act and the expansion of Medicaid. Texas is about one of, I think, up to now 23 UUA, state advocacy networks within the U.S. There's a meeting of these groups at GA, and 2 years ago, I attended GA and helped with a booth that we had set up, and we had some meetings as well. And our executive director has conference calls with the other state groups to discuss what each state is doing. Some partner heavily with the Sierra Club. California, for example, is a perfect fit. In Minnesota, their group, the Minnesota UU Social Justice Alliance, or get ready for it, Moose Jaw. It's an acronym-based faith. What can I say? Moose Jaw was critical of helping pass same-sex marriage legislation in Minnesota in 2013. We're learning from these other groups and adapting some of their processes to fit within our own mission and vision. We send out email alerts and do updates all the time on our Facebook page. It's pretty active. During the last session, the Facebook page was the best tool we had, and I assume this year it'll be similar. We'll have our first legislative action day coming up during the next session. And the date that's been picked for that is Tuesday, February 17th. It was going to be this coming Tuesday, and we had to move it when we realized just how over the top all of the inauguration events are going to be this coming Tuesday. So I apologize. I was saying to somebody earlier, it's like we're getting a new pope. I apologize, though, if that's caused a hardship for anyone. And also, there will be a bus still going from the Dallas area on that day if you would like to ride that bus. So what will we be doing on that day? We'll be stopping by legislators' offices and advocating for change. Hopefully, there will be some bills at time that we can start to talk about. One of the members of the legislature is a UU. Representative Donna Howard of Austin is a member of First Church in Austin. So we have some allies down there. It's not like we're completely flying blind. We'll have a training session at morning beforehand at the Capitol or on the buses as they drive down about the best way to communicate with legislators and their staff. And sometimes, for example, you never want to brush off the staff people. I mean, they're the cogs that really get the things done. Can you imagine if a legislator alone had to read all of this stuff that they have to read? And as we know, some of them probably can't. But anyway, I shouldn't say that. Sometimes in the staff will really help to change some legislators' mind. So it's a very important thing. Also, how to follow up, how this whole legislative process works, how the sausage is made. This will be the first one of these we've done. So we're going to screw up. We're going to make some mistakes. In fact, I hope we do, because that's how we learn. And, we're in this for the long haul. This isn't just this is going to be a long process. So, at this point, some of you that are still with me here are probably feeling that in this great state of Texas, working as a liberal religious voice is a bit like Don Quixote tilting at windmills. And I've had this conversation with some of you people here. We've talked about it. And I'm not going to argue that point, because there are politicians in very high office who have already come out just in the last few weeks and stated their opposition to at least two of our three core issues that we're going to be advocating for. But once again, I'll point to the fact that we need to find alliances. We need to consolidate our power. I go back to the old story of the teacher who gave the student a twig and said, snap it in half. Did so easily. Next, he got a whole bundle of sticks and asked the student to do the same. And the student could not. So, like my old Texan grandfather would say, we need to get a whole bunch of sticks. If we can partner with like-minded groups and speak with a louder and louder voice, as time goes on, we do really have a shot at putting our principles into action in the future of our government. Right now, more than ever, we need to be talking up what change we would like to see. Is this going to make a difference right away? Of course not. But we'll take one small victory at a time. One jobs program. One little bit of restored funding. If we can change a few minds and just get our message heard and get it out there, we have a really good chance. And also remember, this doesn't have to be just a statewide thing. Originally, we were going to call this the Texas UU Legislative Ministry. But one of the other states, when we were talking to them, said, don't limit yourself. Call it a justice ministry. Especially considering that our yahoos only meet every 2 years. So we want to be able to work for change throughout the state. We partnered with many statewide, community, and denominational partners. Partners like Green Faith, also standing on the side of love, of course. And in just last week, most of you already know, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals heard arguments to rule our defense of marriage law unconstitutional, along with similar laws in Louisiana and Mississippi. So there's some real hope there. 3 years ago when we were at this thing, I even said to somebody, I said, we got to go real slow. It's Texas. You're not going to get gay marriage passed in like 5 years or something. Don't be crazy. Might happen. You never know. So, we also are partnered with Texas Impact. If you're familiar with that organization, Reverend Freeman is the first and only UU on their board now. The Texas Freedom Network, Reverend Freeman, is one of the founders of this with Cecile Richards, Governor Ann Richards' daughter. The Industrial Areas Foundation and all of its Texas affiliates, including ACT, Allied Communities of Tarrant, and Austin, San Antonio, DAI, or Dallas Area Interfaith, El Paso, Laredo, Houston, Lower Rio Grande Valley, West Texas. I'm sure there are others that I'm forgetting. But now let's talk about funding. Our funding comes from you. When we first started, we were given a grant from the UU Fund for Social Responsibility. Other funding comes from congregations like Westside that are members. I think the dues right now are $2 per member as reported to the UUA. The reality, though, is most of our funding comes from individual donations as well as plate offerings. All of the funding details are in the flyers that I brought today. They're on the table just outside the door. It also has our website and Facebook address on there. So, in the coming months after our first legislative action day, we'll be launching a Faithify crowdfunding effort. And for those not familiar with it, Faithify is a crowdfunding site created by the UUA to help with ideas of broadening our values beyond our own congregational walls. You should check it out. If you Google Faithify, it pops right up, or you can find it from the UUA homepage. I think that we have an effort at Westside going on right now for the youth with Faithify. Also join us, like and share our Facebook page. It's time to get involved. Really, it's past time. So, we have some work to do. Let's do it together. And any of you that want to go stand with us and visit our state reps and senators on February 17th, please see me and I can get you to the sign-up page. It's also, I believe, on the Facebook page. And even though Reverend Alex covered this a few weeks ago, similar quote, let's move forward in the spirit of our forebear, Reverend Theodore Parker. Reverend Parker penned the phrase President Lincoln made famous: a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And he also preached the words that Reverend King employed, which are on a rug in Obama's Oval Office. The arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Once again, thank you all for allowing me to share this opportunity of the shared ministry for the common good on this beautiful Sunday morning. And like that bundle of sticks, let's hold together and bend Texas toward justice. Thank you.